Today we're going to finish up our work on this ash tree. This is that last top section that I got to be a 10-foot length. It's got some damage to it and should have some interesting formations and patterns for us to take a look at. Pretty excited to throw it through and see what we find. So let's check it out. So I could have sped this part of the video up a little bit more, but I pretty well decided not to because I wanted to show you what it looks like when you have a log like this that's not necessarily the most stable and you're trying to get it up here in just the right spot and just trying to get it to move where you want it to without having it fall back down the ramps. It is a bit tricky sometimes on some of these, especially these logs that aren't just kind of that perfect cylinder look. So while you're winching the log up the ramps, you want to keep that cord in the middle bunk so that way it keeps the log on target. But now that this is up on top of here, I'm going to go ahead and reroute that cable around the log itself, and then that way I can use it to snug up the log against the log stops. Alright, well, I've got it loaded. I'll go ahead and show you some of that damage I was talking about. Right here we got a nice big cavity, pretty deep in there. Might have some interesting stuff going on each side here as we cut into it, depending on how it was growing after the damage happened there. About here and on, then you get a nice big long kind of stable section where we're going to have hopefully some boards, at least on underneath this piece here. So but we'll go ahead and get this clamped in and get it cut up. We haven't got very deep yet, but it already looks pretty cool. Got a lot of interesting stuff going on right here. A lot of bark inclusion and some discoloration down here. I got a friend who's hoping to make some knife handles with some of this material. So I think I'm gonna send him some pictures of some of this, see what he's interested in. Let's check out underneath this now. Really awesome grain patterns in here. I think he's going to be pretty happy about getting some of this here. Make a really sweet handle for a knife. So some of that up here as well to choose from. So pretty excited to see what else we find. This seems to be really high quality stuff, especially compared to the base of the trunk like we'd cut a few episodes ago. And this is much nicer. So much going on this piece of wood in here. A lot of places where bark was, a lot of places where branches were coming out. Just way too cool. And we're getting into the area up here, just on the one side, where it was kind of healing over. It still looks like really good wood on the inside there. So it's long since healed over, at least on this area. And we'll see how it looks as we continue to get in there. About to cut into this bit on the next cut, so we'll see what that looks like. Let's keep going. Well, I wasn't quite sure what we were going to run into. The bottom here still looks pretty good, but up here looks like found some more of that decay where it's gone even further down from where we already knew it was up here. Had a lot of carpenter ants popping out saying hello, so certainly gonna be some more of those to come. So we'll see what else we find in here. We can go ahead and clean this up and we get a little bit better look. This is quite hollow under here, so I'm not sure if I'm going to have much worth working with on the end other than maybe some cuts that I can get along the edges here. I'm going to stick to the 3/4 inch that I've been cutting for some projects I want to do, having just some live edge. I think at least this side here would be pretty cool to do with that, though maybe not this side quite as much. But of course, as you move just past some of these sections right here, it gets a little bit nicer. Toward the end here, definitely a lot more of a solid piece. Could definitely use that for some things, but some of these spots just look like they're hollow, and I'm not sure when that hollowness is going to start. Obviously there's some holes right here and right here, but let's go ahead and cut another 3/4 inch off of this and see where that takes us. Still got some pretty cool stuff up in here. Still have some of these lines and streaks in it. Really cool grain patterns, some waviness there. Really loving how all this looks. Hoping that I can get a little bit more of that in another piece here. Up here it definitely starts breaking apart. You can see some of these lines where all these ants have been. It's interesting to see how they've been kind of living in the middle of this, but I think they've damaged it a little bit beyond what I can use unless I find someone who really wants to fill that with epoxy and use it. I don't think I want to spend that time on it though, but keep going and see what else we find. Well, it's getting a little bit harder to get all the sawdust to come off with the water when I'm pouring that out of the buckets because of all these giant deformities and missing areas and kind of splashing out more of a mess and certainly more ants. So I've definitely upset them at this point. I'm gonna go ahead and flip this over. We'll see if I can make some cuts the other way. Maybe get into something worthwhile on the underside, but at least on this portion here on this side, kind of worthless. And getting to where on the edges here, I'm getting a little bit close to where I've got my stops, and with how this is placed, if I go much lower, then when I push my stops out, I'd have to cut off even more of these types of sections here in order to get the legs of the saw head to be able to move past this point. So definitely worth a flip at this point. Maybe I can get something worthwhile on that other side of the log. Well, we got our first substantial cut into this side of the log, and really it's all holding together still pretty well. You can tell that something might be going on the other side here, as we already know, but we're really just getting a lot of the really cool patterns on this side and not any of that damage yet. Until you get up here, there's a couple of those cracks that you can see along the length of that up to the hole up here. But other than that, it looks pretty good. I think I'm going to go ahead and see if I can make a couple 3/4 inch cuts like I've been making, hoping to get some just kind of accent pieces for furniture, not terribly structural, and we'll see if those will serve us well. Try and have a few extra that way in case some of these aren't quite as good as the rest. Well, I just made my final cut on this, making this bottom piece 1.5 inches thick, so definitely started getting into the areas that were torn apart and ripped up by these ants and their little colony in here. They're certainly not happy with me at this point, not that they ever were. Kind of cool still on the edges here. Still have some really cool patterns and different areas and features of interest. Still might be of interest to someone who might want to make some sort of a table out of this, or some sort of feature piece, because it's still got really cool grains, really cool designs in here. And honestly, you could probably add color or do something fun with the different holes up there from where the ants were living. I ended up getting 5 additional 3/4 inch pieces out of this. These 5 right here. The first 2 were those ones that I cut out that still have a lot of damage into them. So really excited to get this much. I thought a lot more of this was actually going to be destroyed, that this whole colony was going to be a lot deeper, but it wasn't until this final cut here where you've got a little bit of damage here. And on the other side of this one, we don't even see that at all. If I flip this up, nice and clean on this side of it. So really didn't have all of that much damage compared to what I thought on a lot of this. So probably get to make some maybe nice shelves, or maybe it'll be parts of that bed frame that we're trying to make. Not sure how it'll all dry out, and that'll partly determine what we end up doing with it. But being this thin, hopefully we can use it a little bit sooner. So we're going to go ahead and get all of this stacked up and get it situated. Hopefully it'll be dry here in a bit, and get to start working with it.